For some reason, as soon as you say the word tests, everybody's brain shuts off. Hey again, guys. Good to see you all. Today, I'm going to be talking about how a nursing student continues to improve her exam scores and how you guys can continue to improve yours. So in general, I want to talk about, first of all, exams, as you all may know already, must be taken seriously. In order to actually do a good job, you gotta actually study and you gotta actually care and, put effort into it. So that being said, let's get into the depth of this video. So I'm going to be talking about 4 kind of subjects, and it's going to be pre-study, study, post-study, and then
the exam.
So pre-study is pretty much the same as post-exam, just depending on whether or not you actually had an exam before that. For me, when I started nursing school, I hadn't been in an actual school for about a year, because I was spending 1 year just doing like Bible classes because I'm going to a Christian school and working. So I actually have quite a few notes with me right now that I'm going to go through as I'm talking. So just so you guys know, if I'm ever looking down, that is what it is. And if I ever accidentally slap myself with some paper. So post-exam / pre-study. So there's a couple of things that you need to do before you even get to studying. And that is to think about how you used to study for your past exams. You need to know what works for you because everybody has different learning styles. Some people are kinesthetic learners, or they like to work with their hands. Some people are visual learners, so they like to look at things like graphs maybe, or just watch somebody else do it. Some people learn better by reading, and then some people learn better by hearing. Some people learn better by speaking. You got to know what works best for you. Personally, I work better by also writing is one. Writing things down by listening and by speaking, and sometimes by seeing things. I do learn by touching things. That's only for like procedural stuff. So honestly, I feel like everybody's a little bit of everything, but some more than others. You need to really think critically for this pre-study part, what works best for you. Like I said, do your outside research. There are quizzes online. I can link some quizzes down below in the description box that you can take to determine what works best for you. And a lot of it is just going to depend on what you remember and how you studied for past exams. So like I said, I hadn't studied for an exam, for a real exam, for about a year before I did nursing school. And that's not a very good place to be when you're going into nursing school, because as most of you may know, nursing school is extremely intense. And the exams are no joke, so you really got to do your best. Hopefully, your teachers will provide you a study guide. For the most difficult exams, they will provide you study guides in most cases. If you don't use a study guide, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot. Use the study guide. And if you don't have a study guide, it depends on what class. So, like I said in the very beginning of this video, you should put a ton of work into your exam, studying
based on
how important that class is. So, fundamentals of nursing class, I'm taking about 5 classes right now, and that is the most important and the most stressful, and the one that requires the most study. So that's the one that I'm going to spend my most time in. However, there's also another class, like Integration of Faith in Nursing, which is much less stressful and requires a whole lot less study because my exam is only like an essay. And then there's another class, which is, what is it called? Promotion of Health. And that's an important class for sure. All of my classes are important, but not all of them require as much study. So the Promotion of Health one does have quizzes and it does have an exam at the end. However, it's very easy and it's straightforward.
And they don't provide study guides
for that class. So what I'm going to do for that class is look at the PowerPoints that she's using and take notes in the PowerPoints as she lectures. And in all honesty, I don't really spend much time super hyper-focused in her classes because they're all super straightforward. And it's all in the PowerPoints. I don't really recommend that, but if you really have to study for another exam or another thing that's going to come up later and you want to use some of your class time from health promotion, I wouldn't say that it's a horrible idea to use that time. So yeah. So if you don't have a study guide, look at the PowerPoints, because most of the information is going to be on the PowerPoints or in the lecture. So take really, really good notes, especially if it's an important class, in your PowerPoints. So the reason why I'm listing out all these ideas is because these are things that I used in the past that I found super helpful. So me using my critical thinking for my next exams, maybe I can use that for how I can improve based on how the past exam went. If you did take an exam in that class previously, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you ask your neighbors, the people sitting next to you, how they did. Now, you don't have to ask them for like their grade, but ask them like how they think it went and if there's anything that they want to improve on for the next exams or any advice that they thought was super helpful for them when they were studying for their exams. And then share your own, know for yourself what you did, what helped you really well and what didn't help very well, so you can kind of like help each other. Now, in nursing school, even the best and most kind nursing schools have people that are not very nice, because nursing school is filled with a lot of type A students that are very competitive, can sometimes not be the nicest. So you need to know who to open up to and who not to open up to, because if you open up to somebody about like maybe a grade you weren't very happy with, who is very competitive, they'll use that against you and they'll look down on you pretty much the rest of the time. Trust me, I've been there. So don't do that, and just know who in the class you can trust, because there's actually a lot of really good people. Choose at least like one or two really, really trustworthy people that can be in your study group, who you'll know is a hard worker and who is a nice, kind person who's not going to like backstab you to get the best grade. Also, go talk to your teacher. Usually your teacher in nursing school will not give you back your exam except for like a very short amount of time, and they won't let you take any pictures. If you get your exam back, look at the exams questions that you got wrong. Think about what exactly went wrong that made you get that question wrong. And then look back at the questions that you were not sure about and why you were able to get those right. Take notes about stuff like that so that you can go back and change how you studied for the next exam. If you didn't get to see it in class, go ask your teacher, or even if you did get to see it in class, go ask your teacher either to see the test, to see what you got wrong, or to ask her questions about the questions you got wrong so that you can improve for the next exam. And if she has any advice for studying that she thinks, my professor is a female, so that's why I keep saying she. Ask your professor what advice they have in order to keep improving. Now, we get to the study section. Study is the best, and I have a few tips for this. First is when to start studying. That depends on how difficult the class is. So, if this is like my health promotion class, the quizzes I would take for those, I wouldn't even study. I'd just go and take them because they're all open book. So I wouldn't even waste my time studying. Everything you learn in nursing school is extremely beneficial, but there are some things that require more of your time than others. Because a lot of the stuff you'll learn in health promotions, you'll also learn in fundamentals of nursing. And yay! Fundamentals of nursing also happens to be the class that is the most intense, so probably should spend more time there. That's my reasoning behind that. For the most intense classes, I would say start studying the day after your last exam. Sorry. So that's what I do for my fundamentals of nursing. I actually have my book with me. So how to read through the book. This book is huge, okay? This book is ginormous. You're not going to actually read this entire thing. That's completely impossible, and you will completely stress yourself out, if not go insane. That's why the study guide is super helpful. You can know exactly what sections to go to and what sections to actually read. Go through the study guide, write down all the main points of the study guide, as you see here, and then find which chapter, or usually they'll tell you on the course calendar. So for this one, it's fluid and electrolyte acid balance, and they say that this is in MedSurg chapter 42 and also fundamentals of nursing chapter 42. So I went to chapter 42 and first skimmed through the whole chapter and looked at where each objective of the study guide was talked about. So if you'll notice on the very edge, you'll see a ton of like page numbers next to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those page numbers tell me where to go look in order to find the answers to those objectives. Skimming through the chapter is extremely important because then you're not as overwhelmed, because there's a ton of information, and if you skim through the chapter first, you'll have like a better understanding of what you're looking for. And then once you skim through the chapters, you're gonna go one by one to each objective and look at the page number and try to answer that objective completely with detail. And if you feel like you didn't fully answer the question, what I did for one of them, like this one, ta-da! So I marked in purple all the ones that I didn't feel like I fully answered. On the top, I have like a little, purple means go get more information on it. I have a little key in the top to tell me to go get more information about that. And then I also have a section for questions. You'll notice on my little study guide at the top, I have all the objectives written out, and then I have one little sticky note that says questions on it. So that's, as I'm going through the study guide, I'll write down questions I have that I can't find answers to. For like objective 8, which is identify priority interventions for intravenous therapy complications. Yeah, it's complicated. And then I asked, are there any other interventions we need to know other than assessment? So a lot of these questions that I have written out are just, oh, do we need to know this or do we need to know that? There's a very specific way you need to ask that question, because otherwise you'll come across to professors as, I don't really want to learn this information, but how much do I need to know just to pass? And you don't want to come across like that because you really want good like relationships with your professors. So there's a very specific way you have to ask that kind of question. Sometimes you'll have to come out and say it like that, but sometimes it's better to just say, so I noticed in the book that yada yada yada. Can you tell us what we should know about that? There was one part, so it talked about infiltration scales. I didn't notice that in the study guide, but I noticed in the book. It's better to put it as, what exactly do you want us to know about the infiltration scales? Or can you explain what we should know about the infiltration scales, or yada yada yada, rather than saying, do you want us to know the infiltration scales for the exams? Maybe you think it doesn't matter, maybe it doesn't, but to me, I think it's a little bit nicer than just coming out and saying, what do I need to know to pass, because I don't really want to learn all this stuff. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And so I have little sticky note things on the sides, because I think these are just much better than, you know, writing it all out, and it's just like cuter, I think. I recommend that you do this before you actually go to lecture. This is going to help you so much. So do this, and then during lecture, keep taking notes on this based on what you didn't get already. Now, what should you have with you when you study? I have seen so many YouTube videos that say, oh, have like a little thing of candy, or oh, have like a little mini meal with you, or like a granola bar or whatever. I have tried that, and I have studied for many exams in my lifetime, and personally, I think that that's not a good idea because it totally distracts you. It's better not to be distracted by food. When you have like a little granola bar with you or something, or like a little thing of blueberries, like that's really nice and like really cute. But at least for me, maybe it doesn't affect you, but for me, that's super distracting and it reminds me of how hungry I am. If you're about to go study, it's not a good idea to think, oh, before I go study, I better go eat a big meal, or I better go eat. No, you can have a snack before you go eat or before you go study, but I'd say that that's about it, just so that you can have like a little bit of something in your stomach, or if you're the type of person that if you eat a little bit, then you are now super hungry, then don't. The only thing I would maybe recommend is bringing a coffee in with you, or like a tea or a water. For sure water. Just make your entire study environment very like relaxing, but not too relaxing, and very quiet. So go somewhere where you know you'll be able to concentrate, like a library or a coffee shop. Sometimes coffee shops are very loud though, so you might not really like that. Also, for some reason, when you're in a coffee shop, people just want to come up and talk to you. And I love talking to people, but like, if you have a huge exam to study for, probably best to do it where nobody is going to distract you. So maybe go to a library, or maybe in your room if it's quiet and you don't have a ton of kids screaming, like you probably heard in the background. There's a ton of little kids screaming in the background. So nobody's hurt, they're just playing. For my first exam, what I did was I put all of the study guide into a Quizlet, and as I listened to the lectures, I'd write into the Quizlet more information or answer the questions in the Quizlet. But then once the end time of my study came, I noticed that I was not really liking that system. And so I would study on the Quizlet, and then I'd go and I'd write everything out on my computer on the study guide. And that helped me, and I did well, but not well enough. Like, I did okay, but I wasn't very happy with it. Because I'm just the type of person that wants to get straight A's, and that didn't happen. Anyway.
So.
And then for the second exam, I put everything straight into my electronic or on my computer study guide. So I started answering questions there. Then when the time for the exam came, I wrote everything down, just basically summarized everything on my study guide on my computer in detail and wrote it on a whiteboard and just repeated it to myself until I memorized it and just kind of pretended to teach it to a class. That is super helpful. I highly recommend that you learn to teach things to a class or that you study like that. At least try it out and see if it helps. You may look like a lunatic, but it's actually super beneficial and super helpful. They say that teachers know everything about that subject because they keep teaching it, and maybe that's something to implement when you're studying. So for the second exam, I did better than the first one. So I kept getting better and better. And for the next exam, I plan to write everything on a piece of paper because I noticed that writing things down has helped me a lot. Exhibit A. After I filled it in, I'm gonna go take all of the information that I've summed up based for each and every objective and write it into my official study guide, which is going to be handwritten. So every objective is going to have a summarized, detailed, organized explanation of that answer for that objective. And then once I do that, I'm going to teach it to myself by writing it out on a whiteboard. I'm going to record myself because that way, not only can I look back on what I've studied and on my study guide, my paper study guide, but I can also listen to myself while I'm driving or something. And there's actually online questions that you can use to practice for the exam. And I had no idea. No one told me. Well, at least maybe if they told me, I wasn't really paying attention. But I'm pretty sure no one knows about it because I was really surprised. And I talked to some other of my peers and they didn't know about it either. So post-study, I kind of mentioned it. Keep studying a little bit every single day. You can write things into Quizlet if you want, note cards, or you can just take your paper your paper study guides with you and just keep flipping through them and learning them. And then listen to your recordings. Now, during the exam, don't psych yourself out. A lot of people psych themselves out and it just drives me nuts. I drive myself nuts because sometimes I psych myself out and it's absolutely absurd. I remember I took a class once and me and my partner were studying together, doing the homework together, doing everything together. And then when the exam came, I'd get 100% and she'd get 0. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense because we studied together and you sounded like you knew all the information. And I realized that some people just need to learn how to take tests. You may know all the information, but not know how to put it down on paper. And that's totally normal. A lot of people have that issue. But it's something you can totally learn to get rid of. For some reason, as soon as you say the word tests, everybody's brain shuts off. I really hope that's not the case for you, and I want to kind of give you some pointers that could hopefully help. A lot of it comes down to just doing your best when you're studying, and then on top of it, you need to be confident in yourself. Not overly confident, but you need to be humbly confident that, you know what, I did my best, and I think that my best was pretty good. And I think that I can get a very good grade on this. And the rest is in God's hands. So that's why, at least for me, prayer is really helpful, really important before I go into an exam. And just deep breathing exercises, like breathing in, holding it, and then breathing out. This is actually a method that they use to help people fall asleep. The idea is not to put you to sleep before your exam, but to relax your body before the exam and to relax your brain and just be confident and know that you did your best and you are more than capable of getting an A on your exam. You are capable of so much and you just have to just believe in yourself and believe that you've done enough. Also, every single night before the exam, except the night right before the exam, you're gonna have almost no sleep. But the night before the exam is the only night you have to take. You have to make sure you get full night's rest. Otherwise, you are not going to be remembering things for your exam. That's why you need to schedule your study time to actually be able to do well on your exam. So here's my planner. It actually says embrace the journey. Isn't that fitting? And you'll notice that at the bottom of all my study guides, my calendars, I wrote down like study guide exam 3, part 1 due, study guide exam 3, part 2 due, study guide exam 3, part 3 due, and I just like make my own due dates. That's really helpful because it keeps you on your keeps you serious about finishing the study guide. And if you finish the study guide before your lecture, which you have to finish that section of the study guide before your lecture because that's super helpful in retaining the information. But if you get behind, that's fine. Like I've gotten behind so many times. Just every single time that I haven't been behind, I have seen significant improvements in the amount of information I've retained. So I highly recommend. The idea is plan out all of the detail of studying for your next exam so you can stay on top of it and not leave anything for the last minute. So those are all my study tips. I know it's a lot. If you made it to the end of this video, kudos to you. Seriously, you're a real one. Like this video if you'd like to see more stuff like this. Also, comment below what are some other types of videos you'd like to see. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like, comment below, and I can't wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye!